On the most painful day of my life, when I should have been holding my family close and saying my final goodbye to my sister, Rai was thrown out of her funeral, humiliated in front of everyone. There was no warning, no compassion, not even a human glance. The voice that echoed through the funeral home still burns in my ears. Get her out, now. She has no right to be here. It was my own brother-in-law, Jonathan Pierce, who shouted it. And the crowd full of people who loved parading themselves as the perfect family, the example of unity, turned to look at me as if I were some kind of criminal. I was still holding a photo of my sister, Grace Ellison Pierce, who according to them had died of a sudden heart attack. Grace, my only sister, my best friend, the other half of my heart. And there I was, being shoved toward the door like trash. I tried to speak, my voice trembling. Please, I just want to say goodbye. But Jonathan glared at me with icy hatred. You killed her. You destroyed my family. You're not stepping foot in here. Before I tell you everything, I want to thank you for being here. Sharing this is not easy. Please, subscribe before we continue, and like this video. It helps this story reach other women who need to hear it. Now, sit with me. Listen to what really happened. People began whispering, what did she do? My God, how shameful. Could it really be true? And then my own niece, Adriana Pierce, looked at me with pure contempt and said, you weren't her sister, you were poison. The pain nearly stole the air from my lungs. 2 security guards came toward me and grabbed my arms hard. Their fingers dug into my skin as they dragged me out. And what Jonathan shouted just before the door slammed behind me was the final knife. Grace left a letter, and she asked that you never go near our family again. The door closed. The sound cracked like a gunshot, and I stood there in the cold, shaking, unable to make sense of anything. I didn't know yet, but the whole thing had been staged. A performance, a cruel setup with one clear purpose, to silence me. Erasemen, destroyme. And when the glass door rattled from hurried footsteps behind me, a woman I had never seen before grabbed my arm and whispered, Margaret, don't leave. Your sister didn't die the way they said. I need to show you something. And in that second, I knew Grace's death was only the beginning. I didn't wait until I got home to act. I'm not the kind of woman who postpones a bodily face it head on. With the USB drive tucked inside the zipped pocket of my jacket, I got in my car and drove straight to the Pierce mansion. If Jonathan thought he could throw me out of the funeral and watch me vanish like a ghost, he was about to meet the wrong woman to provoke. When I pulled up in front of the house, the whole facade was lit up like a theater stage, rich people coming and going, whispers floating through the air, glasses clinking. Yes, they had turned my sister's funeral into a social event. I walked through the door without asking permission. No one reacted fast enough to stop me. I heard his voice before I saw him. I want to thank everyone for being here to honor the memory of my beloved wife, Grace Pierce. My vision went dark. Honor the woman you murdered. I headed straight to the center of the room. Every head turned, and the silence dropped heavy as stone. Jonathan saw me and paled not from fear, but from fury that I wasn't destroyed. He marched toward me, spitting venom. I can't believe you had the nerve to come back here. I crossed my arms, steady and unshaken. Nerve is what you lacked when you took my sister's life. The entire room froze. Some guests stopped breathing. Others stepped back as if I'd pulled a gun. He laughed that arrogant laugh of a man who thinks he's untouchable. You're delusional, Margaret. No one believes you. I stepped forward. Then, let's ask your daughter. I stared straight at Adriana, who stood against the wall, arms crossed, expression icy. Adriana, why did your mother try to call me 8 times the night before she died? Her eyes widened real shock. She hadn't known I knew. Jonathan whipped his head toward her like a predator. This has nothing to do with you, Adriana. Stay out of it. I took another step. If it has nothing to do with her, then why did you erase her phone logs? A murmur rippled through the room. People began turning their eyes toward him. He lost control and shouted, Security, get this woman out of here. 2 men moved toward me to grab my arms, but this time, I was ready. I raised the USB drive high, like a torch. Touch me, and tomorrow, this will be on national headlines. The guards froze. Jonathan went ghost white. What is that? He snarled. I stepped closer, staring straight into the eyes of the man who destroyed my family without blinking. A recording from Grace, telling how you tampered with her medication, telling how you kept her doped and isolated, telling who you really are. He went still just long enough for every mask to fall. Then I whispered, low enough only he could hear. I know the truth, and now everyone will know. Jonathan leaned in, desperate, whispering, you won't live long enough to show that. I smiled the smile of a woman who no longer fears death. You can try, but I've always been harder to kill than you think. Then, I turned my back and walked out. As I stepped through the doorway, I heard something I will never forget. Applause, soft, discreet, but real. Women looking at me with tears in their eyes and silent pride. I wasn't just a grieving sister. I was the beginning of a war that would change everything. Back in my car, I shut the door and trembled not from fear, but from adrenaline. I grabbed my phone and called the one person I trusted most in the world, Michael, my nephew, criminal defense attorney, the only one in the family who never sold his soul. Margaret, what happened? I took a deep breath. We need to meet. I have proof. He killed Grace. On the other end, silence heavy then. I'm on my way. Don't let anyone into your house. And don't be alone for a single minute. He hung up. I closed my eyes, and I made one final promise to my sister. Grace, you didn't die in silence. I will scream for you until the world shakes. I refused to bow down. Even with pain burning my face, humiliation crawling under my skin, and my breath unsteady, I turned back toward the funeral home door. If they thought I would just disappear, they didn't know me at all. I've never been the kind of woman who walks away when someone tries to destroy me. The woman behind me looked nervous, glancing around as if terrified of being seen. She was around 50, hair tied back hastily, a hospital badge hanging around her neck. Who are you? I asked, steady, not giving a single step back. She took a breath, like someone carrying a secret too heavy to hold. My name is Olivia Mercer. I work at the hospital where your sister was admitted. My heart sped up. Every word she spoke felt like a steel wire pulling the truth out of the ground. They lied about Grace's cause of death. Margaret, what they put on the certificate isn't real. I stepped closer, locking eyes with her, and she stepped back, startled by my intensity. No riddles. What happened to my sister? She looked at the door behind me, genuine fear tightening her features. Not here. They're being watched, and so are you. If they find out I'm talking to you, my life is over. Something inside me, my instinct, the one that never fails, lit up like a siren. I grabbed her arm, firm but not threatening. I'm not the kind of woman who hides, Olivia, and I'm not a coward. If you have something to say, say it now. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small silver USB drive, her fingers trembling. Your sister recorded this 2 days before she died. She knew she was in danger, and she asked that this get to you, only you. The world tilted beneath me. Why didn't she call me? Olivia lowered her gaze. When she answered, it felt like a blade, because her family blocked every attempt. They told the hospital, you were forbidden from coming near her. My blood boiled, not from surprise but from confirmation. They wanted me to never know. Then Olivia whispered, barely audible, Grace didn't have a heart attack. She was medicated, and someone altered the medical records. Silence, cold, shock, a chill sliced straight through my bones. And when I finally managed to speak, my voice came out like sharpened steel. Who did this to my sister? Olivia inhaled shakily, eyes watering, body tense. Your brother-in-law, Jonathan Pierce. My heart pounded like gunfire. And right there, standing at the door of a funeral I had been kicked out of like a criminal, I made a silent promise. I will take him down, and I will uncover every piece of the truth, even if I have to dig it out with my bare hands. Olivia pressed the USB into my palm and said only, don't open it alone. They'll come after you once they realize it's missing. Then she vanished between the cars like a shadow. I took a deep breath, and for the first time since they threw me out, I smiled, the small, cold, dangerous smile. They had no idea who they were dealing with. They had just given me a reason to fight, and I never lose when I have a reason. I didn't wait until I got home to act. I'm not the kind of woman who postpones a battle. I face it head on. With the USB drive tucked inside the zipped pocket of my jacket, I got in my car and drove straight to the Pierce mansion. If Jonathan thought he could throw me out of the funeral and watch me vanish like a ghost, he was about to meet the wrong woman to provoke. When I pulled up in front of the house, the whole facade was lit up like a theater stage. Rich people coming and going, whispers floating through the air, glasses clinking. Yes, they had turned my sister's funeral into a social event. I walked through the door without asking permission. No one reacted fast enough to stop me. I heard his voice before I saw him. I want to thank everyone for being here to honor the memory of my beloved wife, Grace Pierce. My vision went dark. Honor the woman you murdered. I headed straight to the center of the room. Every head turned, and the silence dropped heavy as stone. Jonathan saw me and paled not from fear, but from fury that I wasn't destroyed. He marched toward me, spitting venom. I can't believe you had the nerve to come back here. I crossed my arms, steady and unshaken. Nerve is what you lacked when you took my sister's life. The entire room froze. Some guests stopped breathing. Others stepped back as if I'd pulled a gun. He laughed that arrogant laugh of a man who thinks he's untouchable. You're delusional, Margaret. No one believes you. I stepped forward. Then let's ask your daughter. I stared straight at Adriana, who stood against the wall, arms crossed, expression icy. Adriana, why did your mother try to call me 8 times the night before she died? Her eyes widened real shock. She hadn't known I knew. Jonathan whipped his head toward her like a predator. This has nothing to do with you, Adriana. Stay out of it. I took another step. If it has nothing to do with her, then why did you erase her phone logs? A murmur rippled through the room. People began turning their eyes toward him. He lost control and shouted, "Security, get this woman out of here." 2 men moved toward me to grab my arms, but this time, I was ready. I raised the USB drive high, like a torch. Touch me, and tomorrow this will be on national headlines. The guards froze. Jonathan went ghost white. What is that? He snarled. I stepped closer, staring straight into the eyes of the man who destroyed my family without blinking. A recording from Grace, telling how you tampered with her medication, telling how you kept her doped and isolated, telling who you really are. He went still just long enough for every mask to fall. Then I whispered, low enough only he could hear, I know the truth, and now everyone will know. Jonathan leaned in, desperate, whispering, you won't live long enough to show that. I smiled the smile of a woman who no longer fears death. You can try, but I've always been harder to kill than you think. Then I turned my back and walked out. As I stepped through the doorway, I heard something I will never forget. Applause, soft, discreet, but real. Women looking at me with tears in their eyes and silent pride. I wasn't just a grieving sister. I was the beginning of a war that would change everything. Back in my car, I shut the door and trembled not from fear, but from adrenaline. I grabbed my phone and called the one person I trusted most in the world. Michael, my nephew, criminal defense attorney. The only one in the family who never sold his soul. Margaret, what happened? I took a deep breath. We need to meet. I have proof. He killed Grace. On the other end, silence heavy. Then, I'm on my way. Don't let anyone into your house, and don't be alone for a single minute. He hung up. I closed my eyes, and I made one final promise to my sister. Grace, you didn't die in silence. I will scream for you until the world shakes. I drove straight to Michael's house. It was pouring, the kind of rain that hammers against the glass, as if the sky itself were warning me that nothing would ever be the same again. When I arrived, he was already waiting at the door, coat still wet, expression grave. No one had to explain anything. He saw in my eyes that this was bigger than any family dispute. Come in, quick. I locked the door behind me and pulled the USB drive from my pocket, placing it on the table carefully, as if it were explosive. Michael took a deep breath. Do you have any idea what this could mean? I do, and I'm not running from this war. He plugged the USB into his laptop. The screen went black for a few seconds that felt like hours until the image appeared. Grace, my sister, sitting in a hospital chair, pale, weak, but with a look I recognized instantly, the look of someone who refuses to die quietly. My heart felt like it would tear out of my chest. Michael hit play. Her voice came out weak, but steady. If you're hearing this, it's because I didn't make it out alive. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not then. I listened until the very end. Jonathan is controlling my medication. He talks to the doctors when I'm asleep. He says it's for my own good, but I know it's not. I know he wants to silence me. Michael ran a hand down his face, stunned. Grace took a shaky breath in the recording and continued. I found out he's been embezzling money from the company, millions, and I was going to report it. He told me to stay quiet. I didn't, and now he wants to make me seem unstable, suicidal, sick. My breath faltered. My sister Margaret, please don't let him erase me from the story. Don't let them say I died of a weak heart. My heart was never the problem. And then, with tears streaming down her own face, if anything happens to me, look where no one else will. Start with his room. There's evidence there. Don't be afraid. He was always afraid of you. The recording ended. Silence filled the room. Michael braced his hands against the table, tense. Margaret, this is pure dynamite. If we expose this, he goes down. But he's going to retaliate. Hard. I took a deep breath. There's no greater violence than killing someone and burying her as a lunatic. Right then, Michael's phone vibrated insistently. He answered then, his face went white. It's the police. There's a complaint against you. They're accusing you of trespassing and verbal assault at the funeral. They issued a summons. I smiled, the kind of smile born when the enemy finally reveals exactly where he's afraid. Perfect, that means he's desperate. Michael looked me in the eyes, serious. Margaret, do you understand what this means? He's going to try to destroy you publicly before you destroy him legally. Then his phone buzzed again, notifications shooting up the screen. Breaking news. Margaret Ellison causes scene. Removed from sister's funeral. Unstable sister disrupts ceremony. Attacks family. Source claims she caused the emotional breakdown that led to Grace's death. My picture plastered on every news site. Frozen in the worst angle. A reversed narrative. Michael inhaled sharply, outraged. He planned this. Paid journalists. Big ones. He's going to paint you as a monster. I lifted my chin. Then we answer with the truth. We make Grace's recording explode before he finishes building the lie. Michael stood still for a few seconds, thinking, then nodded. I know the right journalist. One who can't be bought. I'll set a meeting for tomorrow morning. But until then, you can't stay here. It's dangerous. I'm not hiding, I replied without hesitation. This isn't about cowardice, it's about strategy. If he can't find you, he loses control. He placed his hands on my shoulders. If you want to win, you need to be alive when the truth comes out. At that moment, we heard violent pounding on the door, hard enough to shake the house. Michael froze. So did I. A man's voice shouted from the other side. Police, open the door. I looked at Michael and he looked at me. It was the beginning of the real war. And I was ready. The pounding on the door grew even more violent, like they wanted to break through wood and concrete. The sound echoed through the house like a war siren. Police, open immediately. Michael looked at me with urgency, eyes wide, already calculating faster than he could speak. They came faster than I expected. This was coordinated. Jonathan is panicking. I took a steady breath and said firmly, don't run, Michael. We're not giving him the spectacle he wants. He nodded, though his jaw was tight with contained rage. When we opened the door, 3 officers stepped in with aggressive posture, hands near their weapons, as if they were about to arrest an armed fugitive, not a 68-year-old woman with arthritis. The officer in front read aloud, Margaret Ellison, you are being taken into custody under suspicion of assault, threats, and disruption of a funeral ceremony. You need to come with us. I lifted my chin and replied, calm as steel, I won't resist, but I want it on record that this is a setup, and the truth will come out. The officer tried to turn me around and force my hands behind my back far too aggressively. Michael stepped in immediately. Careful, she has a shoulder prosthesis. One wrong move and you could dislocate it. I looked straight into the officer's eyes and said, I'll walk with you. I have nothing to hide. The man who sent you does. The entire room froze. The officer swallowed hard, visibly uncomfortable. He knew, even if he wouldn't admit it, he knew someone was using that badge as a shield. As we were leaving, Michael's phone buzzed. He answered instantly. Yeah, make it quick. You got it. Good. Release it now, wherever it makes the most noise. He hung up and gave me a half-triumphant smile. Grace's recording is being sent to journalist Emily Carter. She published it in minutes. There's no going back. A fire lit inside me. Then let's give them a show. I was escorted down the hallway under a swarm of cell phone flashes and cameras because Jonathan had already alerted the press before the police even arrived. Everything ready, everything staged. But then, in the middle of the chaos, something happened. An older woman, someone I didn't know, slowly took my hand, gripping with surprising strength. Don't give up, we're with you. Her eyes held pain, recognizable pain, pain of a woman who had survived in silence. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. They shoved me into the back seat, and the door slammed hard. Seconds later, The officer's phones started vibrating all at once. Notifications, news alerts, breaking news. The two policemen exchanged confused glances. I saw the headlines reflected in the window. Urgent. Video of Grace Pierce exposes possible homicide and fraud. Brother-in-law under investigation. Recorded before death. Victim speaks of forced medication. Jonathan Pierce accused of cover-up and harassment. The driver gripped the wheel tightly. Jesus, this changes everything. I smiled not out of joy, but at justice arriving with iron boots. Looks like you're going to have to rethink who the criminal is here. Minutes later, the officer received an urgent call over the radio. New instructions. Do not take her to the precinct. Bring her to the central courthouse. Red alert, case under federal review. He looked at me in the rearview mirror, not with hostility now, but with respect. I simply said, I told you nothing was staying buried. As the patrol car turned the corner, toward the central courthouse, I already knew something had shifted. Before, I was just the troublesome sister in a carefully engineered family drama. Now, I was a headline. Even inside the car, I saw notification banners popping up on the officers' screens. One of them, the younger one in the front seat, couldn't hide his shock. My God, it's the same lady we have in the back. On his phone screen, a frozen image of Grace appeared. Pale, weak, but with dignity blazing in her eyes. The caption in bold letters, if something happens to me, IT wasn't my heart. IT was him. And below that, the name she accused, Jonathan Pierce. The officer looked at me through the mirror different now. He didn't see a suspect. He saw a survivor. I told you it wasn't delusion, I said quietly. You all just took too long to listen. When the patrol car stopped, the sight took the air from my lungs. It wasn't just reporters. It wasn't just cameras. It was people. Women holding signs. Justice for Grace, don't silence Margaret. Not a heart attack, a crime, a sister, is not the enemy. A group began applauding when they saw me step out of the car. Not fan applause. Applause of recognition of women who had been labeled dramatic, hysterical, problematic, when, in truth, they were the only ones who had ever seen the danger clearly. The officers made way. They were serious, but they no longer looked at me as a threat. On the other side of the street, a black car screeched to a stop. A door slammed. Cameras swung. Jonathan, expensive suit, carefully rehearsed, devastated widower expression. But something was different now. Fear was leaking through the cracks. As soon as he stepped onto the sidewalk, reporters swarmed him. Mr. Pierce, what do you have to say about your wife's video? She claims you controlled her medication. Were you embezzling company funds? Was your sister-in-law wrongfully detained? He inhaled deeply, activating his character. My wife was ill. She was confused. That recording reflects her emotional state. I always cared for her. Always. I almost laughed in his face. Always cared. Until the end. He looked at me with that expression I knew too well, half fake pity, half contempt. I forgive Margaret. She needs help. She doesn't know what she's saying. They turned her grief into a spectacle. Oh, here we go. I stepped forward. A microphone found its way to my mouth without me even needing to ask. I don't need your forgiveness, Jonathan. I need you to answer for what you did to my sister. Noise erupted. Shouts, live cameras, people holding their breath. He turned toward the cameras, forcing a smile. This is what happens when you give a platform to someone unstable. I cut him off. .com as a woman who has nothing left to lose. Unstable is drugging a woman to rob her while she's still alive and burying her as a lunatic after she's dead. Unstable is calling a crime care. Unstable is believing money can buy the conscience of an entire country. Someone shouted from the crowd, "Say it, Margaret, we're listening." And that's when everything shifted. I realized it was no longer just my voice. It was the voice of hundreds, maybe thousands of women who had never been given a camera, or a microphone, or a safe outlet to speak. The officer beside me hesitated. "Ms. Ellison, I'm not sure this is appropriate." I looked at him with respect, but without backing down. Inappropriate is watching a woman get buried twice and staying silent. I'm going to speak, and if anyone wants to shut me up, they'll have to do it in front of them. I pointed at the women across the street. Some were crying, others held their fists up, all of them were alive. We climbed the courthouse steps. Reporters formed an improvised corridor. The journalist Michael had contacted Melly Carter, approached with her microphone in hand. Eyes sharp and clear. "Margaret, the entire country is watching. Do you want to say something before going in?" I took a deep breath. I didn't think of pretty phrases. I thought of Grace, of the times they called me dramatic, of the times they said I was looking for trouble, of the times they told me to stay out of it. And then I spoke. Yes, I do. I turned toward the camera knowing that on the other side, there were gray-haired women in living rooms, widows with shattered hearts, mothers blamed by their own children. My name is Margaret Ellison. I'm 68 years old. I was thrown out of my own sister's funeral like garbage. They called me unstable, a problem, an embarrassment. I paused, breathed, continued. But the truth is that my sister died trying to warn the world about what was being done to her. She left evidence. She left her own voice recorded, and I will not let that voice be shoved in a drawer like it means nothing. I looked directly toward Jonathan, surrounded by lawyers. Men like him think they can kill a woman twice, in life and in memory. Today, I'm here to say, you will not kill my sister in either. The crowd erupted in applause and shouts. Emily struggled to hold back emotion. Margaret, are you afraid? I answered without hesitation. Yes, I am. But I'm far more afraid of looking in the mirror and seeing cowardice. Silence thick with respect fell over the crowd. Then, I finished. If you're at home right now and someone has tried to make you doubt your own sanity, if they've called you dramatic, crazy, exaggerating, a problem, know this: sometimes the one making a scene is the only person seeing the fire. Don't stay silent. Not for family, not for a husband, not for anyone. Emily inhaled sharply. Thank you, Margaret, I replied. Don't thank me. Thank Grace. She was the one brave enough to speak first. I'm just finishing what she started. We entered the courthouse. Jonathan would now have to face me, without a door to shove me through, without security to drag me away, without lies to suffocate me. Now he was in the rightful seat, and I finally was where I always should have been, on the side of the truth. When I stepped into the courtroom, the air felt different, dense, charged, almost electric. The silence wasn't empty. It was an audience waiting for the first shot to be fired. Jonathan sat at the defense table, surrounded by expensive attorneys, their tailored suits barely containing their arrogance. He tried to stare me down, that predator's gaze he'd used his whole life to control women. This time, it didn't work. I stared back, without fear, without blinking, without lowering my head. He looked away first, and that alone was already a victory. Michael sat beside me, opening his neatly organized folder. The assigned judge is serious. Margaret, he won't tolerate theatrics, and the video has already been filed. The court can't ignore it. I nodded. I was ready for war, but not for spectacle. I wanted justice. The bailiff raised his voice. All rise. Judge David Holloway entered. 60s, sharp eyes, zero patience for drama. We sat. He opened the case file, flipped through a few tense seconds, and said, "We have received a significant volume of material today regarding the death of Grace Ellison Pierce. Given the gravity of the accusations, this court will treat the matter with urgency and absolute rigor. Before proceeding, I would like to briefly hear both parties." He turned to Jonathan. "Mr. Pierce, you may speak first." Jonathan rose with the theatrical posture typical of a manipulator who thinks everyone else is naive. "Your Honor, my wife struggled with serious emotional issues. She was vulnerable, fragile, and unfortunately, she came to believe delusions and groundless theories. What is being circulated is a malicious edit intended to destroy me." The audience murmured in outrage. Jonathan continued with a martyr's voice. "I dedicated my life to caring for her. And now, watching my own sister-in-law turn my pain into a spectacle, it's devastating. I saw people shaking their heads. He was losing them. I knew it." The judge, visibly impatient, turned to me. "Ms. Ellison, would you like to respond?" I rose slowly, with complete control, moving like someone who has carried weight all her life. "Yes, Your Honor, I do." I looked straight into the judge's eyes, then at the audience. The truth doesn't need embellishment, or rehearsed tears, or dramatic speeches. All I bring today is my sister's voice, the voice of a woman who knew they would try to silence her. I held up the USB drive firmly. And if there is any doubt about who is telling the truth here, I ask only that the court listen to the woman who lost her life. Jonathan slammed his hand on the table, losing control. "Objection. This material has no verified authenticity." The judge cut him off sharply. "Silence, Mr. Pierce. Authenticity will be analyzed by experts, but the material will be heard now." Jonathan went pale. He walked toward the judge with panic disguised as indignation. "Your Honor, This will destroy my reputation. It's irresponsible, sir. This court does not exist to protect reputations. It exists to protect the truth. Play the audio. Jonathan's eyes widened. No, don't do this. The entire room held its breath. The technician hooked up the file. The screen turned on. The lights dimmed. And then, Grace's voice filled the room. Weak but steady. If you're hearing this, it's because I didn't make it out alive. Some people covered their mouths. Jonathan is controlling my medication. The judge slowly turned to look at Jonathan. He wants to silence me. He wants me to look crazy. Women in the audience began to cry. If something happens to me, it wasn't my heart. It was him. At that moment, Jonathan shot to his feet, screaming, "This is a lie. She was sick. You don't know what you're talking about, you bitter old woman." A raw, feral scream. He had completely lost the act. Security moved in. The room erupted. Women protesting. Cameras flashing like a storm. Lawyers trying to restrain him. And, in the middle of the chaos, I stayed still, just watching. Then, at the perfect moment, I said come enough to shatter him. "Thank you, Jonathan. Now everyone has seen who you really are." The judge slammed his gavel hard. "Order, order in the court. Mr. Jonathan Pierce is hereby placed in temporary custody for contempt and threatening behavior. A federal investigation will be officially opened tonight." My heart nearly burst. It wasn't victory yet, but it was the first major blow. And for the first time since Grace died, I felt it. She was here, with me, and justice had just woken up. Jonathan was dragged out of the courtroom like a wounded animal, kicking, shouting, incoherent threats, spitting rage. "This isn't over. You'll all pay. Every one of you." The guards struggled to restrain him while photographers captured everything. The endless flashes lit up every humiliating detail. The perfect man collapsing in public. I didn't blink, didn't look away. I wanted him to see my face steady, whole, unbroken. He tried to meet my eyes before being pulled out, but couldn't hold the stare. In that instant, I knew he had lost. Not legally, not yet, but psychologically, publicly, socially. And men like Jonathan survive only when they control the narrative. And he had just lost it. When silence returned, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Adriana Pierce, pale face, smeared makeup, shaking hands for the first time, without her shield of arrogance. She stopped near me, but not too close. Her body looked torn between hate and truth. "You destroyed him." In front of everyone. I took a slow breath, steady, without hostility. "I didn't destroy him. What he did destroyed him. I only brought light." She clenched her jaw, tears pooling in her eyes. "You don't know what you're talking about." I took one step closer, keeping calm. "If you know something, Adriana, now is the time. Silence only protects the one who harms, never the one who suffers." She blinked, and the tears finally fell. She lifted a hand to cover her face, then let it drop as if she were too tired to pretend anymore. "He wasn't the man the world saw. He didn't take care of my mother. He controlled. He punished. He frightened." Each word seemed too heavy even for her. She swallowed hard and continued. "She tried to run away 3 times. He always brought her back. He said he was protecting her. But I know he hurt her. I just didn't want to believe he could go that far." My heart tightened, not for her, but for Grace. How many times had she tried to warn us? How many times had she tried to survive? "It's not too late to do the right thing." Adriana lifted her eyes, desperate. "I found something. In his room. In the desk drawer. I didn't know what to do with it. I was scared." My breath stopped. "If I give this to you, do you promise you won't let anyone destroy my mother again?" I placed my hand over hers, not as an enemy, but as a woman speaking to another woman after surviving a battlefield. "I promise, for Grace's memory, for the truth, and for you." She inhaled sharply, pulled a folded envelope from her pocket, and handed it to me. I opened it slowly. Inside was a contract, a life insurance policy worth $12 million, in Grace's name, with one sole beneficiary, Jonathan Pierce. Along with it, there was a small handwritten note, shaky but legible. "If I disappear or die, don't believe it was an accident. Signed, Grace Ellison Pierce." My blood stopped moving. Michael rushed to my side, eyes wide. "Margaret, this changes everything. This is material evidence of financial motive. This is homicide with economic benefit. This is life sentence territory." Adriana, sobbing, whispered. I didn't know where to go. I was scared of him. I still am. But when I saw you stand up in that room and not back down, I realized he's not invincible. I held her shoulders. No one is, especially men who think they're gods. Michael's phone rang. He answered. His face changed instantly from triumph to fear. What, when, where? He hung up. I felt the blow before he spoke. Margaret, your house was broken into. They tore everything apart, and they set your car on fire. The world stopped, the lights, the noise, the crowd all disappeared for a moment. Then I understood. The war had escalated. Jonathan was falling on. Men like him, when they fall, never fall alone. They try to drag everyone with them. I looked at Michael. He wants to silence me before this reaches federal court. He'd rather see me dead than see the truth alive. Michael nodded, serious, steady, no panic, because he already knew. Now this isn't just about your sister. It's about survival. I breathed deeply, calm as stone before a tidal wave. Then let the storm come. I don't run. I never have. He thought he could bury two sisters, but all he did was hand me a shovel. And I know how to dig better than he thinks. When we stepped out of the courthouse, the world outside was no longer the same. Sirens upon sirens echoed through the streets. Police, press, cars stopping, people filming. It looked like a movie scene, but it wasn't cinema. It was war. Michael placed a firm hand on my shoulder. Margaret, you can't go home. Not now. I took a deep breath. There was so much rage, so much fire inside me, that for a moment I wanted to ignore everything, face whatever was coming, but I wouldn't fight without strategy. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Until we get official protection. Before we could take a step, a woman ran toward me. She wasn't young, maybe close to 70, white hair loose, simple coat, devastated eyes. She grabbed my hands desperately. Thank you, for not staying silent. I heard Grace trying to ask for help. I was there. I saw. My body froze. Who are you? Her hands trembled. My name is Eleanor Walsh. I was a nurse at the hospital. I was fired 2 days after Grace died. A chill ran through me. Why? She looked into my eyes, and what I saw there made the ground disappear under me. Because I heard Grace begging them not to let her husband into the room. She said he was going to kill her, that he was going to increase her dose, and hours later, he went in, without medical authorization, and when he came out, she could barely breathe. My chest tightened painfully. She continued, voice breaking. When I questioned it, they said I was making things up. They threatened me, said my family would suffer if I opened my mouth. I got scared. I'm sorry. I held her face firm, true, grateful. You're speaking now. That's courage. She took a breath and said, there's something else. There's a video. From the hallway camera. It shows him going in and out of Grace's room the night she died. I made a copy before they deleted it. My heart stopped. Where is it? She looked over her shoulder, terrified, hidden, because if they find it, I'm dead. But now I want to hand it over. I can't carry this anymore. Michael exhaled sharply, realizing the weight of what we suddenly possessed. If that video exists, it's the end. There's no possible defense. And then suddenly the sound of shattering glass tore through the air. Someone fired a shot. The crack echoed like thunder. Women screamed. Police drew their weapons and pushed us behind parked cars. I looked quickly at Eleanor. Are you okay? She nodded, breathing fast but unharmed. Michael grabbed my arm. Margaret, this isn't pressure anymore. This is an actual attempt to silence you. They'll try to eliminate you before we get that video. I swallowed hard, but I didn't shake. Good. They want war. They'll get war. He looked at me with a mix of pride and fear. We're taking you into judicial protection now. Until we get that video in our hands, everything depends on you staying alive. I lifted my chin. Grace died because she was alone in the end. I won't die like that. I won't let fear finish what he started. And then, looking at the crowd hiding behind cars and barricades, I shouted with everything I had. You won't silence me, not even dead. Women answered in chorus. Neither will we. And in that moment, even, with bullets flying, sirens screaming, and my life hanging by a thread, I felt the world turn itself inside out, and the truth on the verge of exploding. We were taken to a secured room inside the courthouse, mall frosted glass walls, metal table, 2 chairs, cameras in the corners, temporary official protection. Not a cell, but a bunker. Outside, the chaos kept growing. Shouts, cameras, sirens, people clapping. For the first time, it wasn't just confusion, it was momentum. Michael closed the door and took a breath. The video is on its way. Eleanor is afraid of being tracked digitally. She's bringing it in person. 20 minutes. I nodded, focused. Then these 20 minutes are the most dangerous of my life. He didn't disagree. Most likely yes. I sat down, hands steady on the table, no shaking, no crying. I was stone. Minutes later, the door opened carefully. Eleanor entered trembling, but whole. In her hand, a small metal box, the kind that looks insignificant, yet can carry entire worlds. Here it is, the copy of the video. Keep it safe, protect it, and do what has to be done. She could barely speak, her voice cracking under the weight of what she had witnessed. Michael took the drive, plugged it into the laptop he'd brought, and put on the headphones first, to confirm the file existed. He froze after a few seconds. Margaret, you need to be sitting. I don't need to. Show me. He hesitated, then pressed a key and turned the screen toward me. Grainy footage, security camera, hospital hallway, timestamp, 11:41 p.m. date, 2 hours before Grace's death. Jonathan appears on the screen, alone, approaches the room door, looks both ways, uses an access card clearly stolen. He enters, the door closes. 2 minutes later, muffled screams, a crash, a weak voice, and then the detail that flipped my entire world upside down. Adriana appears running, desperate, trying to open the door. Mom, answer me. She pounds on it, punches it, sobs. She's terrified. She's not complicit. She's not indifferent. She's a daughter begging. Minutes later, Jonathan exits the room, shirt wrinkled, breathing hard. He's holding a syringe. Adriana lunges at him, screaming, "What did you do to my mom? You killed her." The audio is low, but clear. Jonathan grabs her face with brutal force, like he wants to crush her mouth. "If you open your mouth, you die too. I'll destroy you. I'll destroy her. I'll destroy everyone." Adriana collapses to her knees, screams, breaks, and right then, I saw the whole truth. She wasn't an enemy. She was a victim, as trapped as her mother. The video ends with her crying on the floor of the hallway, completely shattered. Silence filled the room. I breathed in, feeling my soul groan inside me. He killed my sister in front of his own daughter, and he used her trauma as chains. Eleanor sobbed softly. Michael clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Margaret, this is devastating. This recording alone can take him down instantly. It destroys any possible defense." I closed the metal box slowly. "Then we'll destroy him." Precisely, without hurry, without mercy. And then something unexpected happened. Adriana walked through the door, not crying, not shaking, not broken, but standing tall, burning inside, transformed. She placed a thick folder on the table. "I want to testify against him. Everything." I looked her in the eyes of someone who had gone from pain to fury. "Are you sure? He will try to destroy you. He already did. But you showed me he's not a god, and I won't be complicit in my mother's death. It's time to end him." Then she pulled a folded sheet of paper from inside the folder. A sheet of paper with only a few words, but carrying unbearable weight. "Testimony of Adriana Pierce. I saw my father kill my mother. Signed, dated." My heart stopped. Michael slammed his hand on the table. "This is the end. This is no bail prison time. This is total downfall." I closed my eyes, and for the first time, after days of war, blood, humiliation, fear, and survival, I felt something unexpected. Peace, not the absence of pain, but certainty, purpose, a victory that hadn't arrived yet, but already existed. I opened my eyes and said, "Now we clear my sister's name, and bury the man who tried to bury 2 women alive." The video went public at 6:43 the next morning. Emily Carter, the journalist who risked her own reputation to help us, released it across every channel, simultaneously. The hallway footage, Grace's muffled cries, Adriana's panic, Jonathan's cold face holding the syringe. Nothing could be denied, nothing could be erased. Within 10 minutes, it was on every national newspaper. Within 20, it was trending worldwide. Within 30, hundreds of people gathered outside the courthouse. Within an hour, police were at the Pierce mansion's door. Jonathan was found trying to escape through the underground garage, a suitcase of cash and a forged passport in hand. He didn't even have time to fake dignity. He was handcuffed on the spot, while a sea of cameras lit up his face like execution floodlights. He tried to scream his innocence, but no one listened. The only sound that mattered was the chant outside, "Justice for Grace, justice for Grace, justice for Grace." I watched everything from the protection room, sitting between Michael and Adriana. When they showed Jonathan being shoved into the police car, metal cuffs gleaming in the sunlight, Adriana collapsed into tears, not of pain, but of release. "He'll never hurt anyone again. Never." I pulled her into a tight embrace, no permission asked, no fear, just truth. "Your mother would be proud. You didn't just save her memory, you saved yourself." She cried on my shoulder, and I cried too, because this victory wasn't easy, or clean, or pretty. It was a victory built on blood, fear, and courage. Hours later, when the chaos settled, and the entire country seemed to be holding its breath, Emily entered the room, holding a sealed envelope. "Margaret, this arrived for you, sent 3 weeks ago, but it was withheld illegally and only released now. It's from the hospital. From Grace." My whole body trembled. I took the envelope gently, as if holding crystal, opened it slowly. Her handwriting, small, firm, unmistakable. I read in silence, but every word screamed, "If you're reading this, sister, it's because the worst happened. I don't want you to see me as a victim. I want you to see me as a woman who fought until the last second to survive. I know you will fight. You always fought for me, even when I gave up on myself. But I need to tell you something I never had the courage to say because I thought it would protect you. Jonathan found out who I really was to you. He found out what we hid our whole lives. He found out the truth about our family. Margaret, you're not my sister by blood. You're my sister by choice, my sister by soul, my gift, my safe place, my salvation. You saved me once, now save yourself. I love you, always." The paper slipped from my hands. Michael caught me by the waist before I fell. I cried, not tears of pain or defeat, tears of recognition, of identity, of unbreakable love. Adriana placed her hand on mine, steady, warm, true. "That changes nothing. You're still my family." I lifted my face, wiped the salt from my cheeks with a trembling hand, and said, "We were both chosen, and love that's chosen is stronger than any blood." Emily set her phone on the table, screen overflowing with notifications. "Margaret, the whole country wants to hear from you. They want you to make a national statement today. Are you ready?" I breathed deeply. I was born ready. I just had to remember. Michael smiled for the first time in days. "Then, let's give the country what it needs to hear." I stood up, tired, bruised, but standing, like every woman who survived the impossible. "Let's begin." We were escorted to the setup outside the courthouse, an improvised stage but carrying the weight of history, cameras lined up like armed troops, microphones from every major network, bright lights, drones overhead, and more than 4,000 people in the street, women, men, elders, teenagers, entire families holding signs and lit candles. "Justice for Grace, not Treadman Oxenmore, silencing women. She didn't die silent, we believe you." When I climbed the 3 steps onto the stage, the noise stopped, as if someone had sliced it away with a knife. Silence, absolute. I could feel the country's breath in the air, heavy, tense, waiting. Journalist Emily Carter adjusted the microphone for me, touched my arm gently, and whispered, "Breathe, it's your moment." I didn't tremble. I didn't hesitate. I didn't search for pretty words. I spoke the raw truth, sharp as a blade. "My name is Margaret Ellison. I'm 68 years old. I was thrown out of my own sister's funeral. I was humiliated, accused, and treated like trash in public. The crowd murmured, outraged. They called me crazy, a problem, unstable, a disgrace, because that's what they do to women who discover the truth. They try to break us. They try to silence us. They try to bury us alive." A growing chorus rose. "We will not be silenced." My sister, Grace, did not die of a heart attack. She died fighting to survive. And she died because a man believed he could control a woman's life and voice. Outraged shouts rolled through the crowd like a wave. But he was wrong, because her voice didn't die. It rose from the grave. And today, she speaks through me. Thunderous applause erupted. I waited for it to settle, then continued. "If you're a woman, and someone has ever made you believe you exaggerate, that you invent things, that you imagine too much, that you're dramatic, know this. Sometimes the person making a scene is the only one who saw the fire." Cameras shook, people cried, voices rose. Today isn't just about justice for Grace. It's about all of us. Every silenced woman, every erased voice, every life destroyed inside a home, behind closed doors, while the world pretends it's happiness. Today, a movement begins. Today, we choose to stop being afraid. Today, we choose to speak, shout, fight. The crowd exploded. We are not alone. I lifted my face, tears finally falling, not from fragility, but from victory. And I promise this entire country, the truth will not die again. Grace didn't die in silence, and none of us will. Applause swept through the streets, rolling across blocks. Lights rose like fireworks. A movement had been born right there, before my eyes. The weight lifted from my chest, and for the first time since my sister died, I felt pride. Not just for her, but for us. For me. Emily stepped closer. Margaret, what would you like to say to the women watching right now, on the other side of the screen? I looked into the camera with all the strength I had ever owned. Don't ask permission to exist. Don't apologize for surviving. And never ever believe anyone who tells you you're small. Women carry worlds, and worlds don't break easily. Reverent silence, followed by a collective roar. While the crowd shouted my name, Michael's phone vibrated. He looked at the screen, and his face changed. I felt the blow before he spoke. Margaret, we found something else in Grace's files. Something that changes everything. Something you need to know before the final trial. My heart pounded a warning. What is it? He inhaled deeply. Not here, not now, but prepare yourself. The final truth isn't about him, it's about you. The ground seemed to tilt under me. And then I understood. The last revelation had yet to come. After the speech, I was taken to a smaller room inside the courthouse, quiet, with tall windows and heavy curtains that filtered the light like a distant memory of sunshine. Michael closed the door behind us slowly, like someone who knows the next thing said cannot yet escape into the world. He pulled out a chair and sat across from me. He didn't look at me right away. He searched for words that frightened me more than any scream could. Michael, speak, no circling. He took a breath, clasped his hands on the table, and said, when we reviewed Grace's material, we didn't just find the hospital recording. There was another file, older, a video recorded 8 months before she died. It was stored in a password-protected folder, and the password was your name. My chest tightened. A video about what? He hesitated, and that hurt more than any bad news, about you, and about the real history of your family. My breath faltered, but I held my posture firm. Show me. He turned the laptop toward me and hit play. And then Grace appeared. Not weak, not drugged, but alive, strong, determined. The way I remembered her before the emotional prison she'd been trapped in. She looked straight at the camera and said, Margaret, if you're seeing this, it's because it's time for you to know the truth. My heart raced. I lied to you for 47 years. My body hardened like stone. You always believed we were sisters by blood, that we were born of the same mother. But that was never true. My stomach flipped. Michael placed a hand on the table, ready to hold me if I fell, but I stayed still. Margaret, you were abandoned at our doorstep. I was 21. Our mother was already sick and couldn't care for anyone. I found you wrapped in a blanket, on the sidewalk, in the rain. My vision blurred, not from tears yet, but from pure shock. I brought you inside, and I made a promise that no one would ever abandon you again. But when Jonathan found out, he used it as a weapon. He said that if I didn't sign papers and hand everything to him, he would put you back where I found you. I covered my mouth, the ground evaporating beneath me. Grace continued. I chose to be a prisoner, Margaret. I chose to erase my own life. I chose to die slowly because I would never let him lay a hand on you. The tears finally came, freely. I didn't cry for the lie. I cried for the love. You are not my sister by cells. You are my sister by soul. The only family I ever chose. She took a breath, struggling. I knew he would try to destroy you using this secret. That's why I hid it as long as I could. And now, you need to know. And then her final words, the ones that shattered me and rebuilt me at the same time. I would give my life for you again. And if I leave before you, stay alive for both of us. The screen went dark. Silence absolute. Michael looked at me carefully, without pity. Margaret, are you okay? I wiped my face with a trembling hand, took a deep breath and answered, my voice firm as steel. No, I'm not okay. And that's exactly what makes me strong. I rose from the chair slowly, not weak, not broken. Reborn. I didn't lose my sister. I didn't lose my story. I gained the truth, and now I'm going to use it as a weapon. Michael gave a quiet, proud smile. The trial starts tomorrow. The whole country will be watching. I nodded. Then tomorrow, the country will see a whole woman. And they'll see a man fall from the height he thought he owned. I looked out the window. The city lights looked like falling stars. Grace, I promise you, you didn't die for nothing. I will honor every breath you ever took, until the end. The next morning, the courthouse felt like another planet. Packed hallways, reporters shoving past each other with cameras bigger than their bodies. Women of all ages dressed in black with white armbands, a silent symbol of mourning and resistance. When I walked into the courtroom, I felt every gaze land on me, not in accusation, in hope. Michael walked beside me, Adriana behind us, gripping the envelope with the signed testimony and the video copy. Across the room, dark suit, visible handcuffs, eyes hollow as a deep well. He tried to stare me down. I stared right back, and this time, he was the first to look away. Judge Holloway struck the gavel. This court now opens the preliminary trial of the state versus Jonathan Pierce, charged with first-degree homicide, financial fraud, medical manipulation, and obstruction of justice. Jonathan rose slowly. He prepared himself for theatrics, took a deep breath, and began the performance he believed would save his life. Your Honor, I loved my wife. I always did. Everything I did was to take care of her. She was mentally unstable, paranoid, aggressive. The recording released was manipulated maliciously to destroy my name. I am a victim of this absurd plot. I lifted my hand, asking for silence. The judge nodded for me to proceed. I turned to Jonathan and spoke with steady calm. If you're the victim, why did you try to flee with a suitcase full of cash and a fake passport? A murmur exploded through the courtroom. Jonathan had no answer for 1 second. One long, devastating second, enough to break his entire facade. I was scared. I had an emotional collapse. I'm human. I walked to the center of the room, unwavering. You know what the difference between us is, Jonathan. You're afraid of the truth. I'm afraid of silence. The judge called the first witness, Adriana Pierce. The entire courtroom shifted. Cameras moved in. People held their breath. Adriana walked to the witness stand slowly, but with dignity. She sat, adjusted the microphone, took a deep breath. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The judge asked the formal question. Miss Pierce, what do you know about your mother's death? She closed her eyes for a moment, then spoke. I saw it. I was there when my father went into her room and increased her sedation dose. I heard my mother beg to live, and I heard my father say, no one's going to hear you scream anymore. The courtroom erupted in shouts. Jonathan screamed back, completely unhinged. Lies. You don't know what you're saying. Your mind was poisoned. The judge slammed the gavel. Order. Mr. Pierce, one more interruption and you will be removed from the courtroom. Adriana continued, tears running freely, without shame. I lived in fear of him for years, but when I saw Margaret fight for someone who wasn't even blood, I realized courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. She looked at me. I'm here because my mother can't speak anymore, so I'm speaking for her. Then she placed the open envelope on the table. I declare under oath that I saw my father kill my mother. Silence. Absolute. Breathless. Jonathan screamed, you'll pay for this. You think the world will protect you. I walked toward him, stopped less than a meter away. The world just did. He tried to lunge at me. The guards grabbed him, dragging him back. Get your hands off me. She regret this. IWILL. The judge rose, voice firm as stone. Given the irrefutable evidence already presented, this court orders the immediate detainment of Jonathan Pierce without bail. He slammed the gavel 3 times. The sound cracked through the room like gunshots. Jonathan was dragged out in handcuffs, screaming, broken, defeated. The courtroom doors closed behind him, and I finally breathed. I breathed deep, I breathed whole. Adriana stood, walked to me, and hugged me. A long, real, healing embrace. Thank you for not giving up on her. Or on me. I never would have. We survived, together. Michael placed a hand on my shoulder. Margaret, the judge wants to give you the final word. For the official record and national broadcast, do you want to speak? I smiled small, but whole. I was born for this moment, and I walked toward the microphone. The judge signaled for the technician to adjust the central mic. A sea of cameras positioned themselves like a swarm of bees ready to capture every breath. The room was so silent I could hear someone crying in the back row. I stepped to the center. My footsteps echoed like hammer strikes. I took a deep breath. And I spoke not as a victim, not as the accused, not even as a survivor, but as a whole woman. Today, the world saw what happens when a woman stays silent for too long. And it saw what happens when she finally speaks. People leaned forward, as if afraid to miss a single syllable. My sister Grace, Ellison Pierce, did not die of illness. She died of injustice, of violence, of forced silence. And today, she speaks again through my voice, through her daughter's voice, and through the voice of every woman who has ever been afraid to tell the truth. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but they didn't break my voice. Today is not the end of pain. Today is the beginning of healing. Because truth doesn't bring back who we lost, but it returns what was stolen from us: dignity. I looked straight into the camera, at the thousands of women watching at home, at every woman who had ever carried guilt that was never hers. If you're hearing me now, and someone has tried to convince you that your voice means nothing, listen to this. I paused. The entire country breathed with me. You are stronger than you think. You are not exaggeration. You are not drama. You are not a problem. You are survival. And I finished. Don't let anyone bury you alive. No one has that right. Grace did not die alone. And none of us will die in silence. I placed my hand over my heart, closed my eyes for a second, and said, "Thank you, for listening, for feeling, for fighting." Silence, then explosion, applause, shouts, crying, people rising to their feet, women embracing each other. I didn't look back. I walked out of the courthouse like someone reborn. 6 months later, the Pierce Mansion, once a fortress of abuse and lies, no longer exists as a monument to power. It is now the Grace Ellison Institute, a center for women seeking justice, free legal support, psychological counseling, protected shelter, financial recovery, and autonomy programs. An entire room dedicated to Grace's memory. With her recording displayed in honor, not in sorrow. On Inauguration Day, more than 8,000 women attended. Adriana held my hand. Michael stood beside us. And when we cut the red ribbon, I felt my entire life shift. On stage, I spoke only one sentence: legacy isn't money. Legacy is dignity, and dignity must be defended. The applause went on for minutes, and then, looking up at the sky, I whispered, "You did it, Grace. We're free." A gentle breeze crossed the garden, and I swear, it felt like an embrace. That's the end of my story. I want to thank the channel Buried by Family for allowing me to share this part of my life. Let me know in the comments what you would have done. Please subscribe. This channel is where women finally speak. Choose your next story on